Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, I'll admit it, I have a sickness. I have a really bad illness. I just can't seem to quit acquiring big machines for my home machine shop. So here it is, my latest addition to the home shop. And what you're looking at here, this is a 28-inch swing Monarch lathe made in 1963. I'm pretty proud, pretty happy. This is a really awesome machine. Yes, it's a little ugly right now. It's got a lot of peeling paint. And admittedly, this machine has a few issues that I'm going to have to deal with, and we'll talk about those as we go through. But it runs. At least I've been told it does. And the evidence was pretty much there that it was running because there was an awful lot of chips on this. Again, the power had been cut when I went to look at these, so I couldn't actually see it under power. But I know guys who have seen this machine run, and they tell me it's a good machine, good type machine, good machine that did really good work. But again, it does have a few issues. And anyway, I thought I'd show it to you. We'll go through it and talk about this machine and kind of give you an update on it. So first, the backstory on this machine, or how I came about it. So if you watch the channel frequently, you know that I've recently picked up several new machines for the shop. We got the LeBlond 12-inch heavy-duty lathe that I'm working on restoring right now. We got the big surface grinder, the 10-inch discs, or 10-inch wheel surface grinder. Got a welding table, a bunch of tooling, and this lathe was actually part of that deal. And I made that deal, it's probably been 5 months ago now, I guess, when I actually went over, looked at this equipment, and decided to purchase it. Hauled, several trips getting stuff hauled home, and this is the last item that we moved. And it's taken me really this long just to get the shop ready where we could bring it in. But this past Saturday, myself and Mike Wiggins over on the Backyard Machine Shop channel, who lives over in Statesboro, Georgia, not too terribly far from me, we made a trip over to Auburn, Alabama, and hauled this machine home from that same lot of the other machines that we got. So I've actually had this purchase. It's been mine for a while, but just now getting it moved home. And it's a beast. The tag on this lathe says it weighs about 11,700 pounds, or at least that's what it weighed new. It was probably a little bit lighter than that because there's been some changes to it, and we'll talk about that again. But still pretty heavy piece of machinery. And I quite honestly have been really concerned about moving this thing for months. I've been dreading it because there's just, trying to move such a big piece of machinery is not an easy task. And now that it's over with and I look back, Mike and I were talking after it was all said and done, and we both agreed this is probably the easiest machinery move that either one of us has ever done. And it's also probably the biggest machine that either one of us have really kind of done on our own. I've been involved with some other bigger machinery moves, but on my own, this one was probably the biggest one. But when we got over to Auburn, they had this thing already loaded up on a giant forklift. I literally pulled in, backed my truck in the shop. They set this on my trailer. It took longer to strap it down than it did to load, which was really awesome. Getting it home, we hauled it home. Once we got it back home, I was able to borrow a big forklift, a giant forklift, and having some connections always helps. But we had that, again, picked it right up off the trailer, set it right in the front door of the shop, brought it in sideways, and we had about 2 or 3 inches to spare, but brought it right in. I had borrowed some machinery movers, the rollers that you put under heavy machines, that we were going to move it, and Mike and I got to talking. Turned out I had 2 pallet jacks sitting here, and I said, you know what? Those pallet jacks are rated for a little over 5,000 pounds apiece, so we're going to try those. So we set this thing down on the 2 pallet jacks. And there were 4 of us all together when I got home, myself, Mike, and a couple other fellas. G and Tyler Thornton came over to help me. And between the 4 of us, we literally put it on the pallet jacks, just pushed it in, wheeled it right in here and set it down the floor. The most challenging part of the whole move was getting the skids. We had wooden skids up underneath this, getting the skids out. That was actually the worst part of the whole move. That probably took us about, I don't know, an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to get those out. But we got them out, and now it's sitting on it's still sitting up on some blocks, on some 2x4s. I didn't set it down completely on the floor because I want to put some feet up underneath. It's got set screws that you can adjust the height on it, and I don't want all the weight on just such a tiny point up underneath it. So I'm going to build some feet that those set screws go down in with a little bit bigger footprint to kind of just spread the weight out on the floor, and I think we'll be fine with that. So let's do a walk around and introduce you to this machine and tell you what I know about it right now, and I'm sure we'll be finding out a lot more as we dig into it. So one of the nice things was the previous owner, Troy Beatty, who is unfortunately passed away, and all these machines that I got came out of his shop, but he had contacted Monarch, and they had sent him the user manuals, a bunch of blueprints, a bunch of other information on this machine, and as part of that, they shipped along the original order form or whatever on here when it was ordered. So I do know a little bit of history, at least when it was originally purchased. So this machine was ordered in, November 7th of 1962. It was shipped to the Pratt & Whitney Aircraft, a division of United Aircraft Corporation. It was sold to Stevens Machinery Company out of West Hartford, Connecticut. So that was the dealer that it went to. So I'm assuming that the Pratt & Whitney plant would have been somewhere in close proximity to West Hartford, Connecticut. Don't know exactly where. So according to this, it was ordered in November 7th, 1962. It was delivered in January of 63. That's what the nameplate says. Had promised 131. So they turned this around in less than 3 months from time ordered to time delivered. So pretty cool. It is a Model 612 28-inch swing. Speeds, it says 12 to 1500 is what it was shipped with. Some other interesting things about this is that it was originally shipped with a 4-post turret tailstock rather than a regular tailstock. That's one of the issues I have. This machine actually did not have a tailstock on it when I got it. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. It was also originally built with a tracing attachment. And I'm trying to find out a little bit more about the tracing attachment, and we'll get into that in a minute. The tracing, a big part of the tracing attachment is gone. Parts of it are still here, and I would love to be able to get a tracing attachment going. But this says air tracer, so I think it was an air-powered tracer. Anyway, that's a little bit about the machine. Where it went from Pratt & Whitney after it was delivered in '63, can't tell you anything about its journey from there on. All I know is that when I got it, it was sitting in Auburn, Alabama, in Troy's shop, and I don't know where it would have gone in between, but that's what I know about the machine. So here's the carriage on the lathe, and I actually had posted some pictures on Facebook, and people had already commented, hey, why does it have 2 compounds? Well, it really only has 1 compound. This is the compound. Of course, this is the cross slide. This whole mechanism here was part of the tracing attachment, and this is what would automatically move in and out. A tracing attachment, if you're not familiar with it, is you would have had a template on the machine that as it went down the carriage, there would be something on that would follow a template, and it would basically trace that, and it would move this whole part of the compound in and out to follow that profile that you're tracing. So this would have been a precursor to CNC. In a lot of ways. So I don't know really anything about how this operates. It says in the manual it was an air tracer, so I'm assuming it was somehow air powered. Again, just haven't investigated, looked into this part of it at all. I would absolutely love to be able to figure out how to get this running either as a tracer or even electronically controlled as a kind of at least a 1-axis CNC. On here, if we can ever get that going. So some of you guys may be familiar with this and can provide me with some insight on it. The rest of the carriage looks decent. I don't see anything terribly wrong. One thing I did notice is on the hand wheel here, this is where the original knob was, and it's broken. It's cracked. This is aluminum. We can TIG weld that up. We can fix that. That screw there is going to have to go. That's not very comfortable to turn. Same thing here on the cross slide. It's very tight. Feels really smooth. But we got to fix the handle on there. That's not any good. Dirt dauber nest in there. It seems like it moves pretty good. Again, I haven't seen it under power. It mainly just needs a lot of cleaning. At some point in time, they repainted this lathe, and the paint that they used to repaint this lathe is just all peeling off, and it really looks bad. But it just was a bad paint job, and it just did not hold up. So that's easy enough to fix, and it needs a good cleaning. When I went and picked this lathe, or when we first went over and looked at it, this lathe was literally piled up all in here with chips, and big, massive chips. And I was told that Troy, the previous owner, used this lathe a lot, probably just doing faceplate type stuff or not having to do something between centers, obviously. And I heard from the guys that I bought it from that he really bragged on how accurate this lathe was, that it was a very accurate lathe. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed in that regards and feel like I'll be okay. So this little contraption back here says Traybon, Engineering Corporation. There's a tag. I can't read it very well. I'm sure I can if I get there and look at it real close. But I'm pretty sure that this was actually part of the controller mechanism for the tracing attachment. It said it was an air tracer. There is an air line coming in here, so I'm assuming that the air, I'm not sure how it worked, but air powered it in some way. And then there's some stuff coming out of here that goes up to the, you can't see it, but it's going over to the compound and somehow feeding in there. So, I have no clue what kind of condition this thing is in, if it's salvageable, if it's something that is we can use. Looks like it has like a time clock in here. Have no idea how this works. Some of you guys may be educating me on this if you got any experience with it. But again, if there's any way, even if I can't utilize this, I would really love to be able to get something hooked up on this and get that tracer working. Even if it's, what I'd really like to do is actually get it CNC powered, where we could put a computer file in there and have it follow that. But if not that, definitely try to get it back to working as a tracer. Don't know if that's doable. This is just looking at the back side of the carriage, and you can see, of course, the compound. Again, this is the tracing attachment that goes in here, or the tracer part. This hose here is what comes from that little Traybon unit, and I'm not sure exactly, again, how it all works. I haven't even begun to investigate it. Some of you guys are probably saying, why in the world did you buy a machine without a tailstock? And that was quite honestly a major concern for me. But one thing that they found when they were cleaning up down there is they found this pallet that had actually two tailstocks on it. Now, neither one of these tailstocks fit this machine, but I think Troy probably picked these up to adapt to this machine. So this is probably going to be a project, is we're going to take one of these two tailstocks, probably the one closest to you, the one that has this big core drill in it here, and we'll have to build a base that will slide on the ways on the machine, and then this will mount on top of that base, and we'll have an adjustments in it where it can move side to side for adjustments. Going to be a major project to try to build a tailstock for this thing, but I think it's doable. I think we can make it work, and even though that wouldn't be the original tailstock, it would be something that we can make work. So when I saw they had these, at least I had some hope that we could get a tailstock on this thing. So down here on this end of the machine where the tailstock would have been mounted, and again, this was shipped originally with a turret tailstock, and don't know why it would have been taken off, other than that maybe somebody just didn't say, well, turret lathe, obsolete, just get rid of it. Well, it could have been used if it was still on here. I wish it still had the tailstock on it. That'd sure beat having to build a new one. Sad thing is that I know without a shadow of a doubt that somewhere in the back lot behind a machine shop or in a scrap yard somewhere in this country is sitting the twin sister to this lathe that has the exact right tailstock that will just fit right on here. It's just a matter of finding that joker and being able to purchase it at a decent price. So if anybody has any clues on that, I'd be very interested if we could find an original Monarch tailstock that would just fit right on here. Long shot, but again, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere. It's just a matter of finding it, or it finding me, or what have you. So any help there would be greatly appreciated. In addition to the big 4-jaw chuck that was on here when I bought it, and this is a 22-inch diameter 4-jaw chuck that was on here. It also came with a couple other chucks. All these chucks are D16 adapters that go into the headstock, which is the exact same pattern that fits on the Lodge and Shipley lathes, 16-inch lathes we have out of the museum. So it's nice to know too that I can actually use chucks back and forth. If I need something out of the museum, I can do that. I've got that 22J collet chuck that I have been using at the museum that belongs to me. It'll fit right on here. Got a bunch of 22J collets. And I've also got a couple of smaller chucks that I purchased myself that I use on the lathe at the museum. So for doing smaller work, that will fit right on here. So that's nice that I have that flexibility to do that. But in addition to this chuck, we also have the couple over here. So these chucks also came with it. This is a Cushman. It looks like it's fairly new. It doesn't look like it's been hardly used. This one is 15 inches in diameter. Looks in great shape, and there's also back behind this also a Cushman, also in very good shape. It's a 15-inch diameter 4-jaw chuck. And those actually came on this little rolling table that I've got them on. They were on there, and they gave me the rolling table as well. It's actually, I think, a hydraulic lift table, but the hydraulic's not working in it. Again, something else we may work on at some point in time. Because of the weight of the chucks and being able to change them, I had this off a while ago. We took it off to move it, but this is a little jib crane that's actually built onto the lathe itself that you can put a little hoist in, and you can come in and pick these chucks up and take them on and off, swing them around behind the lathe, drop them down onto something to store them on, or on the ground, what have you. But nice to be able to have that. And that'll also be useful to have a little crane on the machine itself. So if I got a big part that I need to mount in here, we've got the ability to lift there. I'll have to get a little small winch or chain fall or something to put on there to lift up and down. I got a big chain fall, but I probably need a little small one for that. So there you go, the big Monarch 28-inch metal lathe. I'm excited, I'm pumped. Anxious to try it out, give it a shot. It's going to probably be a little while before we fool with this one though. I'm working on restoring the LeBlond right now, and my goal is get that done. We need a lathe working in the shop. And when that's done, there's probably a couple of other machines that are going to be ahead of this one in the queue to really get in here and work on. This one's going to be quite a project, particularly trying to deal with the tailstock situation. So this one's probably going to sit here for a little while before we get to it. But at some point in time, we're going to get in here and we're going to clean this thing up, give it a good testing, figure out what needs to be done, try to do something to do with that tailstock. Again, I'd love to find a tailstock I can just stick on here, but short of that, we'll probably be adapting one of these 2 tailstocks that came with the machine, and quite honestly, that'll probably end up what's happening, unless we just get really lucky and find a tailstock that fits right on here. One other thing that I know that's a little bit different about the machine, at least from being new, according to my paperwork, this was originally shipped with a 20 horsepower 3-phase motor in it. Of course, my phase converter, it's a 10 horsepower phase converter, so 20 horsepower machine, probably not going to work out, but we noticed that they have changed the motor in this. This has got a fairly new, nice looking Baldor 10 horsepower motor in it. So it is got a motor that's rated on the small side for the machine itself. Good news is, though, is that I can probably run that off of my own phase converter. I can probably make it work as it is. It won't have as much power, but still a 10 horsepower lathe is probably more than adequate. You know, I may not be able to cut 1/4 inch chips off with this lathe, but I can still probably cut 1/8 inch chips off with this lathe with that kind of horsepower. So again, until we get it all fired up and really start checking it out, probably won't know all the details, but I feel good about it. Again, knowing people who have actually seen this machine run and knowing that it was considered to be a very nice type machine, and with the evidence that it had been being used by the previous owner and used a lot, the amount of chips and stuff that was in the pan, and it tells me that it was, you know, it's a user. So, and it could probably be turned on and ran just like it is. We may even try that. We're gonna have to get some power stuff worked out before we try to actually fire it up. But we may go ahead and fire it up at some point in the future and just give it a test, see how it looks. But definitely a project machine, but it's gonna be a heck of a lathe when we get it all done. So with that, we'll wrap up this issue. I thought you guys would enjoy seeing the new toys for the shop. And yes, I do have a disease, and I'm proud of it. I love this disease. Give me more iron. No iron deficiency in my diet.